Crypto mogul found dead in his Lamborghini. Asterisk, a sleek black Lamborghini sits abandoned in the parking garage of a luxury Miami penthouse. Engine cold. Windows tinted. The kind of car that turns heads, that screams success, that represents everything money can buy. But inside, slumped over the steering wheel, is the body of a 32-year-old man who once held hundreds of millions of dollars in his hands. A crypto king. A digital mogul. Someone who lived faster, harder, and louder than most people ever will. His name was Marcus Chen, and this is the story of how he got there. Let's rewind, because every tragic ending has a beginning. And Marcus's beginning. It wasn't glamorous. It wasn't handed to him on a silver platter. It was built from scratch, line by line, code by code. In a cramped studio apartment in San Francisco, where the rent was overdue and the fridge was almost always empty, Marcus grew up in a working-class neighborhood in Queens, New York. His parents, immigrants. His father worked in a dry-cleaning shop. His mother cleaned offices at night. They believed in one thing above all else: education. Hard work, the American dream, and Marcus. He believed it too. He was brilliant. Not just smart, brilliant. The kind of kid who taught himself to code at 12. Who hacked into his school's network at 14 just to prove he could. Who spent his weekends on forums and message boards, learning languages most adults couldn't pronounce. By the time he graduated high school, Marcus had already built 3 apps. None of them made money. But they proved something. They proved he had vision, so he packed his bags, left New York, and moved to San Francisco. With $2,000 in savings and a dream that felt impossible. The early years were rough. Marcus worked as a junior developer at a tech startup that went nowhere. He lived in a tiny apartment with 3 roommates. He ate ramen for dinner more nights than he could count. But he never stopped building. Never stopped coding. Never stopped believing that one day something would click, and then it did. It was 2016. Bitcoin was starting to make headlines. Ethereum was gaining traction. The world was waking up to something new. Something revolutionary. Something called blockchain. Marcus saw it before most people did. He understood the potential. The decentralization. The power of a financial system that didn't need banks, didn't need governments, didn't need anyone's permission. So he built something. A decentralized exchange. A platform where people could trade cryptocurrencies without middlemen, without fees eating into their profits, without the limitations of traditional finance. He called it Chain Vault, and it exploded. Within 6 months, Chain Vault had over 100,000 users. Within a year, 2 million. The platform was processing billions of dollars in transactions. And Marcus. He was sitting on a fortune at 26 years old. He was worth over $300 million. Now, here's where the story gets interesting. Because money changes people. It just does. And for Marcus, the change was instant. He bought the penthouse in Miami. The one with floor 2 ceiling windows overlooking the ocean. The one with a private elevator and a rooftop pool that looked like something out of a movie. He bought the cars. Oh, the cars. The Lamborghini Aventador. The Ferrari F8. The Rolls-Royce Ghost. A collection worth millions. He threw parties. Legendary parties. The kind that made headlines. Celebrities, models, influencers. Everyone wanted to be in Marcus Chen's orbit. He wore designer clothes, flew private, stayed in the best hotels, ate at Michelin star restaurants, lived like a king. But here's the thing about living like a king. It's exhausting behind the scenes. Marcus was drowning. Chain Vault was under attack. Not physically, but legally. Regulators were closing in. The SEC wanted answers. The IRS had questions. Other countries were threatening to shut down the platform entirely. Marcus was spending millions on lawyers, on compliance, on trying to navigate a legal system that didn't understand what he'd built. And then there were the hackers. In 2019, Chainvault suffered a massive security breach. $50 million in cryptocurrency was stolen, gone, vanished into the digital void. Marcus promised his users he'd make them whole. He spent months tracking down the hackers, working with cybersecurity firms, trying to recover the stolen funds. He eventually repaid every single user out of his own pocket, but the damage was done. Trust was shattered. Competitors emerged. Chainvault's dominance began to slip, and Marcus, he started to crack. People close to him noticed the change. He stopped sleeping, started relying on stimulants to keep up with the demands of running a multi-billion-dollar platform. Coffee wasn't enough. Energy drinks weren't enough. He turned to prescription medication, then harder stuff. His friends tried to intervene. "Marcus, you need to slow down," they'd say. "You need to take a break." But Marcus couldn't slow down. He was convinced that if he stopped even for a moment, everything would collapse. He became paranoid, started accusing his team of betrayal, fired employees without warning, cut off relationships with people who'd been there from the beginning. His girlfriend, Alina, tried to help. She'd been with him since before the money, since the days when they were splitting ramen in that cramped apartment. She loved him, not for the fortune, not for the lifestyle, but for the brilliant, ambitious kid from Queens who dreamed bigger than the world around him. But Marcus pushed her away. "You don't understand," he told her one night during a fight that would become their last. "I have to keep going. I can't stop. If I stop, I lose everything." Alina looked at him, really looked at him, at the hollow eyes, the trembling hands, the man who'd become a ghost of himself. "You've already lost everything, Marcus," she said quietly. "You just don't see it yet." She left that night, and Marcus let her go. The next 2 years were a blur. Chainvault continued to operate, but Marcus was no longer the visionary leading the charge. He was a figurehead, a face for the brand. The day-to-day operations were handled by others. He spent most of his time alone, in the penthouse, in the cars, in hotel rooms across the world, chasing something he couldn't name. He'd post on social media pictures of the lifestyle, the cars, the jets, the parties. Everything looked perfect, but it was a lie. Behind every smiling selfie was a man who couldn't remember the last time he felt truly happy. Behind every luxury purchase was a desperate attempt to fill a void that no amount of money could ever touch. People on the internet worshipped him, called him a genius, a legend, the living embodiment of the crypto dream. But Marcus felt like a fraud. Then came the final collapse. In early 2024, a competitor exposed vulnerabilities in Chainvault's infrastructure. The platform suffered another breach. This time, the damage was catastrophic. Hundreds of millions were lost. The SEC launched a formal investigation. Lawsuits piled up. Marcus tried to fix it. He really did. But he was running on empty. His mind was fractured. His body was failing. He hadn't slept more than a few hours in weeks. And then, one night in March, everything stopped. Marcus got into his black Lamborghini Aventador, the same car he'd bought to celebrate his first 100 million. The same car that represented everything he'd built. He drove to the parking garage of his Miami penthouse, pulled into his spot, and never got out. The police found him 3 days later. The official cause of death: drug overdose, a combination of prescription medication and other substances. Accidental, they said. Tragic, a young life cut short. But those who knew Marcus saw the truth. This wasn't just an accident. This was the culmination of years of pressure, paranoia, and pain. This was what happens when the dream becomes a nightmare. He was 32 years old. The news spread like wildfire. Social media exploded. Tributes poured in. People who'd never met Marcus shared stories about how he'd inspired them, how Chain Vault had changed their lives, how he represented the promise of a new financial future. But there were others who saw it differently. This is what the crypto world does to people, some said. It chews them up and spits them out. He was a cautionary tale, others added. A reminder that money can't buy happiness. His funeral was small, private, just family and a handful of close friends. The same people who'd watched him rise and fall, who'd tried to save him, who'd loved him despite everything. Alina was there. She didn't speak, just stood in the back, tears streaming down her face. Mourning not the mogul, but the boy from Queens who dreamed of changing the world. So what do we take from Marcus Chen's story? Is it a warning about the dangers of ambition? About the cost of success? About what happens when we chase wealth at the expense of everything else? Maybe, or maybe it's something simpler. Maybe it's a reminder that behind every fortune, behind every headline, behind every luxury car parked in a Miami penthouse, there's a human being. Someone with dreams and fears. Someone who bleeds when they're cut. Someone who can break. Marcus Chen built an empire. He lived a life most people could only dream of. But in the end, none of it was enough. Because you can't buy peace. You can't purchase fulfillment. And no amount of money can fill the emptiness inside. When you've lost sight of who you are, the Lamborghini still sits there sometimes. In that parking garage. A reminder, a monument, a symbol of everything Marcus achieved and everything he lost. And maybe, just maybe, that's the real tragedy. Not that he died young, not that he died rich, but that he died alone, surrounded by things that meant nothing, disconnected from the people who actually mattered. So here's what I'll leave you with. Success is important. Ambition is powerful. Dreams are worth chasing, but never forget what really matters. The relationships, the moments, the simple joys that money can never buy. Because at the end of the day, when everything else falls away, that's all we have. That's all Marcus had. And by the time he realized it, it was too late. Rest in peace, Marcus Chen. May your story serve as a lesson to us all. If this story moved you, hit that subscribe button. Let's keep exploring the untold stories behind the headlines. Together.